Thank you very much. My apologies first to the translator that I'll speak a bit quickly to get you to dinner more faster, and at least to the panel more quickly. My apologies also to all of you that I'm speaking in English and not in Greek, but I'll give you the two words that I do know for this evening, kalispera. Thank you also to the organizers from Infocom who asked me to tell you about what we're doing in Asia and to see perhaps it can represent some small sample and example of where we can think going forward in Greece as you talk about, elaborately put, the recovery. In Hong Kong, as you can see, the population base is not too much different than in Greece, perhaps a little bit smaller, but perhaps the most important thing here is the amount of competition, which is far more aggressive. The one thing that we don't put on our public slides is that the United Nations has determined that we are the lowest cost of ICT services in the world in some of the highest cost residential locations. That means we're cheap. Everything that we do is inexpensive. And if you come to Hong Kong, as some of you may have come through on occasion to visit some of the Chinese vendors that serve your market, you will discover that Hong Kong can often be referred to as the laboratory of what's happening in the future. Today, we like to view ourselves as the largest integrated operator in Hong Kong, and we have the largest, in a percentage terms, penetration of IPTV, but we'll talk about that in a moment. The quadruple play, which is what I'll talk about quite a bit, the four brands that you see underneath there, and we'll talk about it. Just HKT, I think because we have the CEOs here, I put in an extra slide to highlight that my message here at the end, I'll give you the punchline, is about innovation and what causes it. And we haven't just been innovative at the service level, we've been innovative also at the value creation in the market. And actually HKT was spun off from its parent company PCCW and is organized not as a corporation, but rather as a publicly traded trust, excuse me. A trust, if you're not familiar, will generate significantly more dividends to shareholders and investors. It's attractive to the institutions. And since our IPO 2 years ago, a trust was set as a yield play, has actually been delivered also market value in the rise of its unit price or share price. The unit that I run, PCCW Global, serves global enterprises and service providers. We do so here in Greece, and I want to thank my local team that are here and supporting us quite aggressively. We have a large network, and we also serve enterprise coverage worldwide, today reaching almost 3,000 cities in over 130 countries, but that's not what we're here to talk about. What I wanted to talk to you about is domestically where we're at, broadband, mobile, pay TV, fixed line. All of you are familiar with those types of activities, but I think that one of the things that we've done in Hong Kong is find a way, a little bit initially because of the despair, to move things forward in an extremely innovative fashion. Our fixed line business delivers 2.6 million lines. We have broadband connectivity. We have Now TV, which is a pay TV service, which I'll talk about. And we have our mobile company. And we have the sweet spot in which we service all of them, as you can see. And actually, this slide is now being reshaped as a video to show you that on top of that, we also deliver over the top. And I'll talk to you about that later. We look at the world not in terms of what is the quad play infrastructure, but rather how do you deliver content, how do you deliver the service, as the speaker before me just spoke, if I understood the translation correctly, to a meaningful customer. How do you deliver it ubiquitously, the same way, over any device, over all platforms at the same time? Content, applications, transactions, regardless of the device, regardless of the infrastructure. We've broken it up in a thought process for analysts financially into four worlds: the fixed line, the mobile, the broadband, and the pay TV. But I'll go back to this slide, if it'll allow me, to show you that this is the way we think about it. This is the way we deliver the service to the customer. This is what we tell the analysts. It's two very meaningful things that one needs to focus upon. When we look at the fixed line, it's no longer just a telephone. You can see the evolution here from the old days of simply the way we used to dial a telephone. No longer. When we got to 2003, 2004, we were facing a crisis that we had in our own market. It was one driven by the financial excesses in Asia in 97, 98, 99. It was a crisis driven of the SARS issue, and it was a crisis driven from our own making because we acquired HKT out of cable and wireless with a huge amount of debt. And we had to determine how were we going to go forward. We built our own products, our own strategy, our own equipment, until the vendors were ready. We delivered an iPhone, but it wasn't an iPhone, it was an EYE phone. Unfortunately, Apple showed up in 2008 after us and launched an iPhone. It caused some difficulty, so we called it an iDevice. In any event, the device which we built ourselves in 2006, 2007, this year, has been replaced in cooperation with Samsung by a device made by vendors out on the street with the Tab 3. But it took the vendors some years to get to where we wanted to be in order to service the customer. What we've seen as a result is higher ARPU. We're showing you just from 2008 what we did with our own devices that we put out to the market and test in 2007. And the results from a penetration point of view have been fantastic. And now this year we're able to drop the production costs of the equipment. And so the game plan was smart. Not only that, broadband, which was highly competitive. I showed you the first slide, 5 different competitors for broadband in Hong Kong. How do you afford a situation where there won't be churn? That's our biggest concern, particularly when it's low price and high accessibility in Hong Kong. We took a look at a business plan that wasn't just about broadband in one line to the home, but rather how do you look at mobility and bandwidth, and how do you look at fixed line and bandwidth? And you can see that the left side going up is your fixed line, and your right side going to the right is what you have in mobility. And we've launched a few months ago LTE. LTE, a little bit different than what you're used to in Europe. We're offering 150 meg down to the handset in Hong Kong, which you can actually get on the MTR subway train as well. The idea is to make sure that mobility differentiates and the bandwidth gives you the ARPU. In order to get to the bandwidth, we had to invest. We went fiber to the home in recent years because we came to the conclusion that VDSL, in whatever form, was really just a transient technology. Ultimately, fiber is going to be the way that you have to get to every home, and we came to the conclusion also that the economics of fiber made sense, although the challenges of laying fiber in Hong Kong are significant. Today, we have close to 80% of all households covered by fiber, and by that I mean that if anyone calls our customer service center, we will connect their home within 4 business days, with fiber to the home offering at least 1 gig. The rapid growth that we've seen there has been significant, and I would say that the fiber base, which you'll see in just a moment, has led to Akamai's recent report saying that Hong Kong has the highest average peak speed connection. But if you take a look at our value in that delivery, you can see that the 400,000 customers that we already have connected fiber to the home at an average speed of 118 megabits per second into the home on an average basis is giving you the values that you see for Hong Kong, which has us as #1 in the world. So when we take a look at the next component, which is the mobility piece, how can you deliver all of these high-speed bandwidth applications over a mobile environment ubiquitously the same way you would over a fixed environment? Because as we see, data revenue now accounts for almost 80% of our service revenue. Voice is not meaningful, and we've walked away from roaming charges because it's not valuable to us. So how do we get to a situation where we're only going to be focusing on the money that makes sense? First of all, perhaps to the unhappiness of some of the handset vendors, we said we don't want to play in that game. We're going to focus on SIMs only, because we don't want to hold the capex and the inventory associated with the handsets. Let the customer buy that on the street. Let us get the money from where we know how to play ball, which is in SIM management, and you can see that shift that we've taken in the 63-37%, highlighted by analysts in Asia Pacific last year. We've also moved ourselves into a combination of 4G LTE and Wi-Fi, where we believe there's a huge opportunity, and we'll talk about it in just a moment. We made sure that Hong Kong is peppered. This slide says 12,000. I can tell you that we're about to hit 15,000 different hotspots throughout Hong Kong. Now, these don't sit on their own. These Wi-Fi hotspots are part of a strategy that we call our wireless technology pillars. One that starts on the left with your LTE and wireless capability, and on the right with where we want to go in Wi-Fi. Today at the 11N environment, and already starting since this June at the 11AC environment, which can get us to 1 gig in the Wi-Fi environment. We've also said, and I think this is important to the service providers that will be on the panel, that even though we compete with 4 other operators, that we need to also be able to cooperate. two different operators that we compete with use our network sharing environment. First, in this 2G, 3G environment, in the 3G environment that we work with one operator. Apologies, I can't say their name, but if you read in the newspapers, I'm sure they'll tell you, where we cooperate with them both at the 2G to 3G handoff and now also at the LTE environment. And here, even more complicated, with a second operator, and I believe we're the only operator in the world that does actual network sharing with two competitors. In this environment, we've set up a joint venture, 50-50 owned, which took government frequency because the frequencies available in LTE were limited to us. And then each operator did an arrangement with the JV, and here we are not just sharing towers, we're sharing the radio network, which is quite unusual. We've made sure that there would be seamless mobility between LTE and 3G, and we have made sure that we are also making sure that we are able to integrate with Wi-Fi in a seamless fashion. Wherever you go in Hong Kong, you will see the Wi-Fi capability, even on the trains, underground and above ground, and even into mainland China. But the key to us is the network integration. Seamless Wi-Fi to LTE, Wi-Fi to 3G handoff. That capability in the network, the ability to deliver Wi-Fi and cellular as if it is one network, is the key to the financial success of how we're able to do that. And you might think that in Hong Kong we only work with the Chinese vendors, so I wanted to highlight that we also here announced that the AC cooperation initially has been with Cisco. We're the first to market now with tiered mobile data plans, because one of the unusual things, and that for you in Europe perhaps is not unusual, but in Hong Kong there are so many competitors and data was seen to be as easily available, but with so much bandwidth and so much network to manage, we had to shift the business. And so now voice for us is unlimited, even internationally. The key for us is data, how to manage that financially from an intelligent point of view. Remember, 79% of service revenues coming from the data business. And we're making sure that we partner not just with other players in the business from the customer level, but with the customer themselves. We make sure to deliver apps and inform the customers to be aware of when they are using too much bandwidth. But that's not enough. The business today is full of challenges, not from network and not from service providers, but what we now know to be as over-the-top. Over-the-top, whether it be WhatsApp, or in Hong Kong and in China we prefer Weibo, which is a similar type of thing, or WeChat if you're familiar with it. All of these various apps we wanted to put on top of our network. And we need a mix of what's coming worldwide through the internet that anyone can access, but also driving our own brand. And all of these apps that you see here deliver our own services that are network-based, but also over the top, which arguably can be delivered over someone else's network. So as you can see, we're focused on a fixed mobile convergence at the network infrastructure point of view, but also heading to make sure that all four of these components, which are not silos, they're components each complementing the other. How do we make sure then, with the last of the corner, pay TV, particularly with over-the-top television being delivered over the internet, how do we make sure that that makes sense? In Hong Kong today, I would say as competitive as the telecommunications side of the business is, media is even more competitive. Licensed pay TV is unbelievably competitive, low prices, a lot of quality, a lot of infrastructure. 10 years ago, we were in a situation where we were in debt, as I said, 2003. And we came to the conclusion that the way to stop broadband churn was to introduce content. And we launched Now TV. And as you can see, Now TV, 10 years on, is a very robust thing. It is a leader today in content and customer choice. And you can see that we have today over 190 channels delivered on our pay TV network, which is delivered either over fiber or over the LTE, or over the laptop, or over any device. 22 self-produced channels. That means that we have studios of television-skilled, capable people who are employees of a telephone company. 23 high-definition channels, which means you need to know how to deliver bandwidth, not just over a fixed network, but over a cellular phone as well. You can see that we try to innovate, differentiate, and we do things in a way that we care. The caring part means to deliver applications over the top that make sense. As a result, our ARPU growth has been steady, our EBITDA contribution has been solid, the dividend yield to shareholders has been attractive. And in the last year, we've actually been promoted as the #2 pay TV brand, as the #1 pay TV brand, the #1 brand in media is TVB, which is a free-to-air, I guess, well, I wouldn't want to say ERT here, but in any event, what used to be known as a proper thing. And we have embraced, not defended against, but rather embraced over-the-top. We've said that we have to join forces with over-the-top as a technology and as applicational delivery platform into our customer base. And we do so across all channels in cooperation with content providers, whether exclusively or not exclusively. And managing content is a new business, it's a challenge, and not always will you be able to control. And our approach then is to take content where we can find it, aggregate it intelligently, and deliver premium types of applications such as sports. British Premier League is now sitting on our network, and it is a big driver. But even when we didn't have it, our sports usage on Now TV was growing. And obviously, good TV means good movies and all sorts of other things. But we've also made our own. We've made our own news, we've made our own drama, we've made our own capabilities, and now we've put it over the top. We've put it over the top, and now we're beginning to deliver it over PCCW Global's network internationally to Chinese expatriates, wherever they may be, because we find that to be of interest. CDN, over-the-top, network infrastructure, it's not just a single geography. If you can deliver something meaningful to an end user in today's world, it doesn't have to stop at the borders of your own country. And that's why we're very focused on OTT at the moment. But we also recognize that with the success that we've driven in being meaningful to the customer, actually technology is changing the way people behave in their homes. Smart living. How do we get inside the home for every single component that we possibly can? Desktop, media storage, consumer behavior, enterprise behavior, small business opportunities. I haven't shown you anything here on enterprise, but we're very focused on cloud point of sale for small shops and enterprise. Because if you have today one mom and pop store that decides to open another shop across the way, they're going to need cloud before you can know it. And the fact of the matter is that storage locally does a lot better than storage in Ireland or in America. Smart living is the next area that we're going into because we are trusted in mobility, we're trusted in the home, we're trusted wherever we can go. And I want to say that I think if I look back 10 years ago to where HKT was compared to the discussion that I've heard briefly, apologies, I just came off the plane from Asia, so I didn't catch the whole day's events, but I can hear a bit of a frustration in some of the discussions on the panels, perhaps a cynicism about the financial situation here in the local market. And I have to say that cynicism, from my point of view, is usually the product of sophisticated intellectualism. And I believe that if you have sophistication and the intellectual value, you'll be able to move your markets forward. No doubt when I first came to Greece in telecoms 20 years ago to a conference like this, the room would have been 1/10 the size in terms of people. Everyone here is driving this industry. You have with you skills, knowledge, and capability. We went forward 10 years ago in Hong Kong as a product of despair that we were in. And despair drove innovation, or as one of my friends from Greece said to me before, I believe there's a phrase in your language that poverty drives the seed of innovation. If I'm not mistaken, I hope I haven't misquoted, but roughly. In any event, I believe that what I've just shown you is a roadmap for perhaps the future. But I would argue perhaps a little bit differently, that in summarizing our strategy, what we focused on going forward in investing and upgrading and developing our networks in Hong Kong, developing a full suite of products and services beyond connectivity, and now revitalizing our distribution channels and customer experience in everything that we do, in every component of the business, this is the way we look at things strategically. We want to go to further penetration of fiber to the home, more mobile data. We want to grow internationally, and it's one of the reasons why we've set up an office here in South Europe, and it's one of the reasons why we want to get involved in all different areas of the business. But my primary message to you is, I don't believe you should strive for what we've already done in Hong Kong, but rather our challenges that we had 10 years ago led us to the situation that we are today. And I would argue that the challenges that you face in Greece can leapfrog where we are today in Hong Kong and give us an opportunity in 3 to 4 years to really be learning from each other which way to go. This is one of my most favorite countries in the world, and I travel a lot. And I have absolute confidence that this market will deliver in the next 5 years well beyond the expectations that you may have today. Thank you very much for giving me your time.